long as you want, as long as you want.
So
But
we're
that's
good till
about right.
4, 5 o'clock? Yeah.
No. Well, five is kind of pushing it. Well, we're good till, I don't know, 2:30. Sorry, 3:30, something like that. But
Perfect. No problem.
whatever you feel is relevant.
Okay, very good. I was expecting an hour and a half hour of questions. That's absolutely fine. Okay, now I'm noticing most of you have your cameras off, so I wasn't going to share my slide deck necessarily because, or all of it, because I thought I'd want to see all of you, but I'm not seeing all of you anyway. So I will share my slide deck and I will just talk as I go along, and I'll let you configure your own viewing as you would like to. So I'm going to share my slide deck. And good thing I created one. I actually created this just for you guys. I've spoken on this many, many times with this sort of topic, but I will, but this time I actually put together a slideshow. So here we go. All right, can everyone see my slide deck?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So I have spoken on this many times. I've often called this talk Slip Sliding Away and Other Hazards of Winter for Seniors. And so I thought what I would do is talk about that for probably about the first, just that and the Council on Aging and those kinds of things for about the first half hour. And then I would take the second half hour to talk about smart aging specifically, which I know you wanted to hear about. So I hope that's an okay order of doing things. So that's where I was hoping to go. So here we go. So welcome. This is Pascale on the left, who is not able to be with us today. Unfortunately, she's not feeling well. And so she is home recovering and what have you. So that's me, Executive Director. And so today we're just going to cover slip sliding away because it is a key issue, winter walking and getting out and being active in the winter, every winter, never mind this winter. So that's a key issue for sure. We're going to talk about other hazards of winter because there are many of them. Then we'll take some time and talk about the Council on Aging in general. What is, as David was saying, what is an age-friendly community? We've probably all heard these terms tossed around over the years, and what do they really mean? What's that all about? Then we're going to talk about what we know about seniors in Ottawa. And then what are we doing about what we know about seniors in Ottawa? And then we'll spend, even though it looks like that'll be a tiny part at the end, I'll spend the second half hour talking about smart aging, and then we'll take some questions. All right, so we'll launch right into this. And I'm realizing my thing has reconfigured such that I can't see my clock. There we go. Okay, I'm good. Now I can see my clock. Okay, so slip sliding away. Why do I talk about this? Because it is a significant issue in winter for seniors. I know one of our board members, he's in his 60s. He slipped and fell over Christmas and broke his pelvis, and he's been in hospital ever since. And so this can happen to anyone, anytime. You know, being winter walking and walkability in general of our entire city is a really key issue. And it's something that the Council on Aging addresses on an ongoing basis. So I thought I would mention our snowmoles program. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of snowmoles, and I can't do a show of hands. So I'm going to guess maybe 1 or 2 people have. But our snowmoles program is something that we started about, I'm going to say 6 years ago. And we started really focusing on winter walkability. And we've ended up with this wonderful program. So what is a snowmole? Snowmoles are people who go out and they report back on what it's like to walk on a winter day in your neighborhood. You pick a destination that's very familiar to you. And, you know, maybe you walk to the grocery store or you walk to your friend's house or whatever it is. And so a destination that's normal for you, and you take that route, but you fill in a questionnaire along the way or when you get there. You know, how was it crossing an intersection? Were the streets plowed? Was there a big ridge of snow as you went to cross onto the road and cross through an intersection? We've all hit those drifts that, or whatever they're called, rifts, I can't remember the name of them, but where the snowplow leaves a big thing and then you have to climb over it to get onto the street and what have you. So were those there? Was the sidewalk well plowed? All those different questions. There's a number of different questions. It's 2 or 3 pages, the questionnaire. So it's actually quite substantial. You know, did you have anyone with you today? Did you use any mobility device? things like that, because we want to know what winter walking is all about. So last year we received about 250 snowmole reports, or what we call audits, from individuals. Sometimes people go out in groups and they go out in their neighborhood walking around as a group, and they just make it a fun activity. And we always do something on Groundhog Day, just going with the snowmole theme. We try and make a big event out of Groundhog Day. There's usually lots of snow and winter weather to contend with. And so we do that. And so throughout the course of January to March, last year we ended up with about 250 audits being filled in. This year we're anticipating closer to 500 plus. This program just keeps growing and growing. And what we do with these, just so that you know, what we do with these is we put them all together into a snowmole report, which we launch every November. Now, the report is normally sent to the city councilors, to the city and their snow clearing department, usually around July or August. And then we have an actual launch of the report in November. And it's very normal that launch event every November is attended by, I would say it's not unusual to see maybe 10 city councilors there, and often up to 20 city staff. So if any of you hear on the news, Bryden Denys, he's in charge of the snow clearing for the city. He regularly attends our meetings. So this is something that's actually listened to and valued. And this report has actually influenced their snow clearing standards in certain areas. So it's actually a very big thing. And I'm sure many of you can think, I'll bet a lot of you have fallen this winter. I have. I've fallen once this winter, and it's not unusual that I fall at least once. You slip on the ice or whatever, it happens. So this is something that's really of concern. I'm realizing this is a very blurry photo, so I apologize for that, but it's a great report. It's about 30 pages long. So, and you can download this off of our website if you're interested to know more. There's lots of information on snowmoles on our website. We also have a tips sheet for winter walking. And there's 10 tips on there, and you can download that off of our website as well. Things like, you know, what kinds of boots you want to be looking for, and what's the advantage of having those walking poles, and all those different things. And even tips like keep the salt inside your house so that you can sprinkle it before you head out, rather than going to your garage to get the salt and slipping on the way and all of that. So little tips like that, because winter walking, we all want to be getting outdoors. Most of us do anyway. And so these are just great ways that we can continue to get outdoors and be doing all of that. So what are some of the other hazards of winter? Well, good question. One of the ones that we always talk about, certainly, is the flu. So it's flu season, get your vaccine, all those wonderful things. Now, of course, this year, the vaccine is more about COVID. I don't think people have made as big of a deal about the flu vaccine, since nobody's out there to really get sick. I have to say, I've personally not been sick since COVID happened. I have not had a cold. I have not had a flu. I have not had anything. But certainly in winter, this is one of the hazards, and certainly is challenging. So for older adults, the flu shot particularly is highly recommended. But another issue that we really want to look at is social isolation. And you know, very significant. I'm sure many of you can relate to this. So social isolation, as you all know, is something that is more prominent amongst older adults, because often, and it's something we don't necessarily think about, but when we retire from whatever it is we might be doing, and I understand your group is a lot of artists, maybe you never really retire, you probably continue with a lot of the things that you do throughout your lifespan, whereas some people, they're an accountant and then they retire and that's it, they're done. However, when retirement hits, often it's the first time that we don't have a provided social network. And that is a very significant thing. Throughout our lives, from the time we're born, we have a provided social network. You know, we're with our families when we're really little, and then we go to school every day, and we walk into the school and there's all our classmates and our teachers and everybody else. And then as we get older, maybe we go to a workplace, and then there's all our colleagues and our bosses and our, you know, the bus driver that gets us there and the security guard. So we see people in a social environment every day because we go somewhere, because there's something we have to be doing. But suddenly we retire and we don't have to go anywhere. And so it's one of the first things that can happen, that if you don't have a healthy social network in your retirement years, or building up towards your retirement years, that can be a really significant thing. So it's important that we really have significant social networks. So I'm going to let you jump in here just for a minute. I'm curious, are there any things that you can think of that would cause people, other than retirement itself, which may or may not cause isolation? It will for some, for others, it's no big deal. What other kinds of things would cause one to become socially isolated? Feel free to unmute yourself and toss something in.
Or you can use the chat function at the bottom of your
You
screen.
could, if I were watching that. I'm not sure how to get it while I'm screen sharing. So if someone can tell me if there's anything in the chat function. If not, I can certainly tell you. Yeah.
Sarah, I just from experience, the loss of, the loss of a friend, the death of a friend, or the loss, relationships break up, the loss of a parent, the loss of a sibling, through death. Those can be very, well, not can be, are incredibly traumatic and lead to social isolation.
Very good point.
Or a pet.
Or a pet. Thank you. You're absolutely right. Beth.
I think the loss of space to meet informally can have a big impact. For example, the Lincoln Field Shopping Center has recently closed, and that was a space where people could just get together without having to buy a coffee or whatever. But if, coffee shops became impossible to be a place to meet. So just a safe place to meet.
That's a very, I don't think anyone's ever said that. You're absolutely right. That's a great answer. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Not that yours wasn't great, David, but that's a really unique one that I don't think I've ever heard anyone say before. That's a very good point. Any others? So certainly there can be a lot of reasons. It could be health issues, certainly, that, maybe you're just not as able to get out anymore. I was talking to someone the other day who has MS, and she said, I have to choose one thing I can accomplish each day. And so maybe you used to be able to do 10 and now it's 1. Or so it could be any kind of health issue. It could be any kind of, you can imagine people who don't speak English or French. That can be an isolating thing, but also people who live in rural areas. Think about where you live. If you live somewhere, even if you live on a street and there's just no other people your age to see during the day or whatever, being in an environment where there's other people around and you can socialize and what have you, it's a really good thing. So even, if you live in a rural area, that can be isolating because, maybe neighbors are far away. So thinking about where you live, whether it's an apartment building or a rural area or whatever, that can have a big impact on your ability to socialize just right at your fingertips. So there's a lot of different issues, and this is a very important issue. So certainly I wanted to bring that up. All right. Oh, there we are. I'm on the wrong screen. Okay. So those are a few of the key issues that we're looking at as far as winter is concerned, and that become more significant. Social isolation can be around any time, but it's more significant in the winter. So it kind of starts to tell you a little bit about what the Council on Aging does. So as you can see here, this is a poster that we have hanging in our boardroom, but that has our mission statement on it. So the Council on Aging really acts as a leading community voice for Ottawa seniors. We are a bilingual organization, and our goal is to help Ottawa become more age-friendly. And now we're going to talk about what that means. And in order to do that, we want to look at what are the issues. And we've looked at a couple now that we've addressed. So what is an age-friendly community? Does anyone have any thoughts on what an age-friendly community is? What that would involve, what it would look like? Yeah, go ahead, Beth. Yeah, feel free, anybody, unmute yourself and share. You're on mute though, Beth. Oh.
It didn't, I was thinking it's kind of the same thing as being friendly to new moms, who are pushing strollers. So or to handicap people, because it's got the, it doesn't have big steps. It has well-marked ends of things and that sort of infrastructure.
It's a very good point. So it's one where people are considerate of one another and thinking about what other people's needs might be. Absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Hi, this is Karen
Hi.
Watson. I was thinking, first of all, physically accessible.
Yes.
So where everything isn't imminently climbable, like in a lot of medieval cities in Europe, where people just stay in the square and don't move
Yes.
because they can't climb, some of them. So
Yep.
that, to me, the physical accessibility and the safety,
Yes. Yes.
feeling safe at being a slower moving person, or again, it can depend on your neighborhood or where you are. So having a few points of, where you say hello to the chip wagon guy, or the people lining up at the bank, or, if there are a few points, or your coffee spot, or if you have a spot where you've seen a friendly face, that's age friendly. If they see you, if they hear you, if you see or hear them back, or even just nod these days.
Right.
So that kind of just those touch points of a greeting, of a hello.
Absolutely. That's a really good point.
Sarah, Karen raised a really good point. A lot of people, as Karen just mentioned, a lot of people go to the bank because it's just a way of, seeing people, talking to the teller. You're in a lineup, you have time to, just chat with the person in front of you or behind you. And those things are disappearing with online banking and the reduction of tellers. Same thing with coffee shops. I mean, a lot of people, you meet a lot of people in line. When you think about all the people you met in line, the line in the grocery store or a line in a movie theater, and now everything is fast. You can buy your tickets or your coffee online and just rush in and rush out. And that's changed. There's just nobody is there aren't those touch points anymore that people are mingling and just informally talking to each other.
No, that's a really good point. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yes.
I keep putting my hand up, but I guess I'm not being seen. So
yeah, I can only see 5 people. So yeah, just jump in and talk. Absolutely.
I think one of the things that I'm finding, I just moved to Ottawa a few years ago, like a couple of years ago. And what I'm finding very difficult to cope with is the fact that everybody drives a car. I don't have a car. So I actually don't have a bank anymore because my bank decided to move so far away that I cannot access it. I find that shopping in this area is almost impossible. We're supposed to have access to food in a like a senior friendly hour at 7 o'clock in the morning at Loblaws. I get there at 7 and they haven't stocked the shelves. I mean, I couldn't get milk this morning, which is a staple.
Yes.
So there's a lot of issues around the sort of through line between understanding what it means to be a senior and actually taking some kind of responsibility, because you're going across, you're going from the public sphere to the private sphere and back again.
Yeah.
Also, I should mention my mother is 92 and fell. She was perfectly fine, independent living.
Yeah.
Up until a year ago, she fell. She is now more or less immobile, and she had to move into a retirement home. And the incredible sort of like psychological, physical, all that distance to travel. I mean, in terms of her whole mental state, she went from full independence. She's very intelligent. She's got all her, all her marbles. But she can't, she's having a hard time with this institution.
That's too bad, because retirement homes can be very social. So for some people, they're a lifesaver, and for others, it can be very distancing.
In COVID, there's no socializing.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, excellent points. Thank you, Ruth. Thanks for sharing. You've brought up a lot of good points, and I was really interested in your point about driving. That was really interesting, because you're right. When we don't walk and connect in those ways, it can be significant. Karen, were you wanting to say something? Was your hand up or no?
Well, actually, Ruth's comments about her mother made me realize my mom's struggling at the moment, but normally she's doing very well in a senior's home in her neighborhood, which is downtown, and like a very caring place. But yes, during COVID, it's been so confusing. So
Mhm.
age-friendly, there'd be some consistency. During COVID, we've all had to respond sort of from day to day as the guidelines have changed. But in the seniors' homes and the long-term care, far more so, because they're dealing with the potential for rapid transmission. And
Yeah.
I find places that are the most careful are also the most isolating, except that, like, she has 2 people come twice a day to take her temperature. When they're in lockdown, they have someone come with a cart. And part of that is not just giving them tea and muffins, it's checking in with them, seeing how they're doing, giving them a hello. And as she said, if she'd been in her apartment where she was 3 years ago, after my dad died, she would have felt very isolated. We would have really hesitated about doing anything other than dropping off. And this way she has people covered in
Yeah.
PPE, but nonetheless she recognizes them, who
Yeah.
come and do a little friendly visit. So
Yeah.
there's the disadvantage of a senior's home where all of a sudden everything shuts down, and yet when they're doing it right, they're managing to, with safety and care, still reach out to the people. And for those who, everybody's different. Some people just love the fact that we shut many things down, and some people are going squirrely.
You're absolutely right.
And I'm a social person who loves all this quiet time, but I'm on the phone a lot of the day with relatives who don't.
Yes.
And who
No,
are
that's
going
a really,
squirrely.
really good point. Really, really good point. So you've all brought out a lot of really good points about what would be age friendly. So according to the World Health Organization, a lot of the things that you've said, it's inclusive and accessible, and it promotes active aging. So, all the things that you've mentioned about, being inclusive and having the connections that people would be walking rather than driving, or feel known. I thought that was a great one, where you are just out and about and connecting with people in coffee shops and all kinds of things, just feeling known, that someone recognizes you and waves hello, and that it's a friendly place, it's hospitable and physically accessible. So you've brought out a lot of these key issues. So inclusive and accessible are the 2 key things that we like to mention in terms of being an age-friendly community. So there's 8 main areas of being an age-friendly community. We certainly consider outdoor spaces and buildings, and that would be things along the lines of, our public buildings accessible. Who I think is amazing is Costco. I don't know about you. I have a mother in a wheelchair, and the bumps in so many places to get, if you're in a wheelchair, it's like bump, 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 all the time. Costco, I tell you, the new one at Gloucester, at least, there is not a bump from the time you get out of your car to the time you get to the checkout. It's incredible. There are no curbs of any kind, no bumps. It's wonderful. So things like that make a space just seamless. It's just lovely. So things like that. Transportation is another physical aspect. Housing, and we're going to talk about that later on. Social, there's 3 in the social area. There's social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation, employment, volunteering. Those are things like politics, and those are where you're formally involved. You have a responsibility to do things. And so certainly those are very important. And then, of course, under service, we've got community services, health services, making sure that communication and information is gotten out in an accessible and available way. So those are the 8 age-friendly domains, and you can find more information on those. Most likely best place to go is the World Health Organization website. There's lots of information on what is involved in all of these 8 areas. But back in 2011, so David was quite correct when he said probably for about 10 years now, you've been hearing a lot about age-friendly communities and what does that mean exactly? So he's quite right. It's been about 10 years. So Ottawa was declared an age-friendly city in 2011. Now, that does not mean by any stretch that you have arrived when you are declared an age-friendly city, that everything about it is age-friendly. It means that you've shown enough effort and enough, there's been measurement done to determine, what exists that is age-friendly, what steps need to be taken. So, as with anything, we've never arrived, but certainly we're making those efforts, and the city has done a lot of work towards that. So there's been a city plan, the municipal plan, as well as a vision for an age-friendly Ottawa, which the Council on Aging, which is us, we have sort of adopted that community action plan in terms of keeping it more at a grassroots level. So the city has things like a budget for things like printing the seniors activity guide. They've cut printing all the activity guides for the city, but they reinstituted the one for older adults because people were like, we're not online. So they put them into print, and so they are accessible in print where they aren't for any other age group or ability or anything. So they have budgets for that stuff. They have budgets for park benches. They have budgets for all kinds of things. I don't have that kind of a budget. My full budget could put one park bench in. So certainly, budgets are different, but we do things more like walkability audits, like I was talking about earlier. So those are things at a grassroots where we can get volunteers involved and doing what they can to make the city more age friendly and to influence those who are in a position to make change. So these are the priorities that seniors indicated were most important to them. So the number one thing was community support and health services. This was back in 2011. I'd be interested to see if this has changed, but social participation was second, respect and social inclusion, and then transportation. I was very surprised that housing did not top this list, and maybe it would today. But anyway, that's what they said back then. So let's take a look at what we know about Ottawa's seniors. So we know that our population is growing, and our seniors population is growing in percentage of that population. So back in 2011, these aren't exact numbers, I've rounded them, but we had roughly 116,000 seniors, which was about 13% of our population. I always remember the 2016 number because that's a biblical number of 144,000. It's referred to in Revelation, and so I always remember it. Anyway, so we had 144,000, which was again an increase in the percentage of our population. And we're expecting by 2031, which is only 10 years away now, that we're going to have over 250,000 seniors, which will be over 20% of our population. So, and this is people over the age of 65. So that's interesting to know. So we are growing not just in numbers, but in percentage of the population. We also know that 60% of older adults care for family and friends. That could be a full-time, where I'm caring for my spouse, and it could also be my friend down the street that I get groceries for once a week. But these are people who provide necessary caring activities, caring gestures for family and friends. So there's a lot of older adults out there who are caring for family and friends. I'm happy to send you the slide deck. I see a few of you taking notes. I can see a few, and I'm happy to send you the slide deck, by the way, if you'd like to have it. 36% of older adults do volunteer here in Ottawa. That's pretty standard. Usually about a third of people are saying that they volunteer in the older adult age range. Some people just aren't able to anymore, but seniors do represent the largest percentage. If you look at that age group, it's the largest percentage. Of course, we've got all the teenagers that have to volunteer in order to graduate. So we try and get them going at an early age. But and 11% work, and that's over the age of 65. Now, very few of them work full-time, but certainly it's not uncommon to work. So, and about 1/3 of people go back to work after they retire. So this is just the number of people, the percentage of people who are working after the age of 65. So some people retire earlier than that and still go back. So some are working full-time, some part-time, some slowly transition out. Maybe they work full-time and slowly decrease the hours, but people are working in retirement. I know people who run businesses that are in their 90s. So there's no limit. It's about what do you want to do with your retirement? Absolutely. Few other things that we know, certainly 91% are saying that they don't have any difficulty accessing healthcare, but that means 9% are having difficulty. So 1 in 10 are saying I'm having trouble finding healthcare. 89% are satisfied with life, but again, that means 11% aren't. 70% say their health is very good or excellent, but that means 30% are saying it's not. It's, maybe fair or poor or what have you. And 69% have a strong sense of belonging, which means 31% don't. So, these are great numbers, but I always look at the other side, because the other side of, who doesn't have these things, that's what the Council on Aging wants to be looking at and saying, okay, that's great that so many are doing well, but now what do we do about the people who maybe would report that they're not doing as well? So a few other interesting stats. 31% walk less than an hour a week in their neighborhoods. So that's interesting to me. And that relates to, I believe, what Ruth was saying about people are out in their cars. We're not necessarily walking and connecting with neighbors and doing that kind of thing. About 23% of seniors have used public transit in a given year. That's a very recent statistic. So that doesn't mean they use it as their main form of transportation, but they do use it. 21% of older adults have fallen in the last year. So not uncommon if you've fallen. Apparently I'm in there. So fair enough. 20% are spending more than that third of their income, that 30%. That's always the gauge that you would spend 30% of your income on your housing. So we find that about 20% of older adults are spending more than that 30%, and some are spending 40 and 50. Now that doesn't, if you live in a retirement home, for example, and they're also providing you with, medical care of some sort and, doling out your medications and providing you with all your meals and activities, that's not the same as 30% if you're just living in a your own home or something. So that would be a different percentage of your income, just to be clear on that one, since it's come up. And then 13% of people, this is an interesting statistic to me, took part in family or friend activities only once or less per year. That's 13% of people over the age of 55 who only socialize once or less per year. That's a staggering statistic. And it's not that the other 87% are socializing constantly. You've got another 10% that are socializing 2 to 5 times a year and what have you. So some people really do not socialize. And that's a very significant thing, I think, for us to be mindful of. Is there someone who maybe really doesn't socialize at all? And maybe it's someone that you can give a call to or send a card to once in a while. Anyway, and then 11% of people, that's interesting, people that are injured in car crashes are seniors on foot. So basically senior pedestrians are often injured in car accidents, more so than others. A few last statistics, just, you can see them here. 50% have a disability. Quite a large percentage of our older adults in Ottawa were born in another country or have some other language than English or French as a first language. And even many of them don't speak English or French. And I don't have that statistic here, but I think it's something like 10% don't speak English or French. So it's not just that they speak one plus another first language. They just don't speak that. 24% living alone, and that's a risk factor for a lot of things. Other people are saying, no, that's the best thing ever. I love living alone. It depends on your situation. If you're living alone and very independent and healthy and everything's good, that could be a choice that you're very much enjoying. But it tends to be when our health is a little more uncertain, that's when living alone might become more of a risk factor. But certainly it's of consideration. And then, of course, living in a rural area, living on a low income. And the reason that all of these are mentioned here is that these are risk factors for all kinds of things, social isolation and challenges in a variety of ways. Health, we see different health outcomes, and a variety of challenges. So what does the Council on Aging do about all these things that we know? So what we have is we're structured with a number of committees, and I won't sit and bore you with committee structure. That's not my point. But our committees are structured around the key issues that we're seeing need to be identified. So I'm just going to give you a very quick run through of kind of what they're prioritizing right now. So we have 5 main committees that deal with issues. So one is health, and not surprisingly, we're focusing right now on long-term care. But it's good to know we were actually focusing on that for about 2 years before COVID hit. And we were actually set to launch our long-term care report in April of last year after 2 years of work. And then we had to pause to write a preface for it because now we had COVID to throw into the mix, and that was not our intent initially. So everything in our long-term care plan, other than if it's not COVID related, was there previously. And we were set to launch that a year ago. So that was very interesting, but a lot of key issues there. With housing, the big issue that they're focusing on right now is ensuring that people are aware of what housing options there are in Ottawa for older adults, and also increasing those options so that there is putting a push for more options being available to different people at different income levels and with different needs and what have you. So this, our housing options in Ottawa, that is a guide that is available on our website. I don't think we have any left in the office, and we're about to reprint. So it's going to print, I believe, in April. And so it'll be ready in print in May. So we're very much looking forward to that. We've made a commitment to update it every 2 years. Then, of course, in transportation, we have the snow moles that I've already talked to you about. And then we also have, what other things are we doing? You may not be aware, many of you may enjoy the Ride Free Day on Wednesdays. And you may not know that the Council on Aging actually initiated that. So many years ago, so I believe back in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, long before my time with the council, but that's something that that we initiated, and we've been pushing more recently to have a choose your own ride free day. They're looking at what the logistics in making that happen would be, because you can imagine tapping and is this my ride free day or not, and that kind of thing. So they're not sure how that would roll out exactly, but in the meantime, Mayor Watson has declared a second ride free day on the Sundays, which we were very delighted with. That was a great idea. We just found that not every senior wanted to do everything on a Wednesday. So although it was great to have a ride free day, we just thought we should perhaps provide some options for people. So there's a number of different transportation issues, but those are a couple of the key ones that we've been looking at. And then our income security group does many things. If any of you are familiar with the guaranteed income supplement, one of the gentlemen on our income security group is pretty much single-handedly responsible for forcing the government to make that automatic. It used to be, and I remember fighting for this myself back in the 90s, I would go door to door. I worked in Manitoba housing, and I would go door to door to seniors' apartments and making sure that they had filled out their guaranteed income supplement forms, because if they didn't apply for it, they didn't get it. And this in many cases doubles an older adult's income. And so that's really significant. And so I was absolutely delighted, and I knew it had changed. I knew the laws had changed, because at the time they said it's a privacy issue. We're not going to delve into someone's private finances. And I'm like, you're the CRA. You know our private finances, just give the GIS. Anyway, this particular man who is on this committee is the guy who made it happen. So I was delighted to meet him when I had the opportunity. It was just wonderful. Anyway, one of the other things, they do many things, and they work a lot with the government in power and actually send in papers. All these guys are retired guys who just were big in policy in their careers, and so they've stayed together. It's like this great men's group. They do have a few women now, though. But anyway, one of the things that they have been doing is holding seminars on retiring on a low income. And they go through everything, like how do you plan out your RRSPs? Should you even have any? When do you cash them in to get optimal, to get the optimal kickback on them so you pay the least taxes? And they have a whole host of information on that. And I think I might even have a picture of the cover here. I'm not sure. No, I don't. But anyway, it's a great workshop, and it's about an hour long, and it's normally held, we host it, but it's, we do it through our committee, but it's hosted through the library. And I did check last night, there are none scheduled right now, but they usually do 2 per quarter, so maybe 8 in a given year. So, and they do them in both English and French. So it's a really great program, and there might be some, they do them right now virtually, and I know they do them in Toronto in person normally, so there might be some on the Toronto Library website. I didn't check for that, I apologize. Then lastly, we do provide a lot of information to people. I don't know if any of you are subscribed to our info flash. If you are not, I can certainly send the link to that, or you can just go on our website. If you go on our website, it'll say sign up for our newsletter. And our Info Flash newsletter sends out tons of information. So we have an events newsletter that goes out every Tuesday, just letting you know what events we are personally holding, but as well what other events are going on in the community. And there's often a list of, in English, it's not unusual, there might be 10 or 15 different events going on in the community. In French, the list is often shorter, but not surprisingly, that just tends to happen. But that's an update once a week so that you know what's going on sort of this week for seniors in Ottawa. And then we have an Info Flash News, which is a separate newsletter. It goes out every second Thursday and provides news of what we're doing, but also news of what's significant. So the one that went out, did it go out today or last week? No, it went out today. Yesterday. Sorry, yesterday was Thursday. So it went out yesterday. It had all the updated information on vaccines and that kind of thing, but a lot of other things as well. So usually there's about 5 different news updates of things that are really significant and relevant for Ottawa's older adults. So certainly do sign up for our newsletter if that's of interest to you. And during COVID, the reason this COVID image is here, during COVID, we did quite a bit. We had some very significant articles, a series of about 8 articles with everything you need to know about groceries, everything you need to know about living in an apartment building, everything you need to know. And those are still on our website. If anyone's interested to go and look those up, you can just go in the search and look for COVID, and it'll take you to the COVID page. So that's probably the easiest way to explain that. So now I thought that would take me about half an hour, but it has taken me about 45 minutes. So I will take a bit of time now to talk about the Smart Aging program, which I know you wanted to hear about. And this is a program that, so this is the education side. We have the advocacy side of our organization, which I've just been talking about. And this is the education side of our organization. And we're trying to make the 2 mix. So that we're educating about the things that we're advocating for and vice versa. So Smart Aging was a bit of my brainchild. I had been wanting, since coming to the organization 6 years ago, I had been wanting to provide a course on, what is it about getting older? I don't know if any of you have ever taken a retirement planning course. I know the federal government offers them, and occasionally you'll see one somewhere else, but often it's places that have pension plans and what have you. But I have been speaking at retirement planning seminars for probably about 20 years now. And the portion that I always talk on is the psychological transition to retirement. And so if you ever want me to give a talk on that, I'd be happy to do that too. But that's a totally separate thing I do outside of my role here. But certainly, my thought was, if there's all these things to plan for when we're planning to retire, just like there's all these things to plan for when we're planning, to graduate from high school. What do we need to do so that we can be prepared? Or you're planning to have a baby, or you're planning to get married, or anything that you might be doing where you need to plan. And so likewise, in our older years from age 50 and up, there's a lot of things we need to be planning for then as well. And so my thinking was, what are the significant things that we need to plan for? And that's how this course was born. So, and I've always said it's on the premise of, so many significant life decisions I find get made by older adults in moments of crisis. Suddenly someone has told you you're not allowed to drive anymore and you have no idea, what are my options? What other ways can I get around? I don't know what to do. And it's a big understandable crisis. And so that's very significant. There's also, maybe you've had a stroke, or, not you, but, somebody else. One may have had a stroke, or one may have lost a loved one. And you've never thought through, if anything happened to my spouse, where would I live? Would I still stay in this home? Would I want to move? We haven't thought through those things. And suddenly it's a crisis. And so we're making very quick decisions. So our goal with this program is to help people think through some of those significant issues so that when those changes come, doesn't mean they're going to come tomorrow, but if they come and when they come, you'll be ready for them. You will have done some thinking in advance, so you're ready for whatever changes might come. So that's the goal of this program. It's designed with 8 workshops in the core program, and we're now in the phase of developing new complementary workshops. We were calling them electives, but you don't have to have taken the core program to take the electives, so we decided we would just call them standalone workshops. So I'll tell you a bit about the workshops that are there. There's 8 weeks of workshops in the core program, and you can see them outlined here, but I'm going to run through them just one at a time. But first I'll tell you the course objective. Apparently I forgot to have it in there. So it is to better equip individuals to navigate their life's transitions. So the first week, workshop 1 talks a lot about, okay, I'm getting older. So what's great about this? What sucks about this? What do I still want to do in the rest of my life? What are the things that are concerning me right now in my life that I might want to take action on? And so we really focus, it's a very introspective kind of workshop, that first one. And so really gives you a lot of opportunity to talk with others. And that's one of the things that we do in this program that's been really unique. Is it is a workshop, but so presentation is given, but then at various points, usually 3 points during each workshop, you break off into a small group. So on Zoom, we're doing it in small groups of 3. But in person, we've done it in pairs or in groups of 3 or 4, depending on who's at your table in person. So we've been running the program for about 2 years now. And last year it got interrupted with COVID, and we've just gotten started on it recently again with Zoom. But we had 126 people go through the program last year. And this year so far, we've had 77. And we're hoping to continue to run it on Zoom until we're able to continue in person again. So workshop 1 is all about understanding your aging and thinking it through. Workshop number 2 is on staying socially connected as we age. And so, as I was mentioning earlier, it's easy to get disconnected. So what are the things that we can be doing to remain socially connected as we, continue on through the years? As some of you mentioned, I think David was mentioning, friends die, loved ones die, what have you, but people move away. People pass away, people develop new interests, maybe you don't work with them anymore. There's all kinds of things that happen. Your friend moves out of town because they want to move to Edmonton to be closer to their daughter or whatever. You can understand that. Or maybe they don't bowl anymore because they're having problems with their hip. And so you don't see them at bowling anymore. Like things like that happen. And so, or maybe they've just decided they don't like bowling anymore. Maybe it's not for any health reason, but for all kinds of reasons, we move around. And so that's important to note. So it's really important that we think about our connectedness with other people. But this workshop also looks at our connectedness with all kinds of things. Maybe you're someone who feels very connected with your faith, or very connected to nature, or very connected to your pet. I thought that was great that that was brought up earlier. You're right, like pets can be very significant in our lives. So it looks at all kinds of connectedness. The third workshop is looking at taking steps to a healthier lifestyle. And, what the approach we took to this one was, we kind of all know the basics, don't smoke, walk every day, eat healthy, get your fruits and vegetables. We kind of all know those sort of basic things. So we do a fun review of stuff like that. But the focus we've kind of taken is more on motivation. You know, what are the next steps you need to take? What are the next concerns that you have? What's your greatest fear about, you know, getting older and your health, et cetera, et cetera. And so what are the things you're going to do to take those next steps? What do you need to be looking at next? The fourth workshop is on preparing for a health crisis. And we go through a few scenarios in that one where we're saying, you know, let's consider so-and-so. So she had a stroke and, you know, now her son has moved her to where he lives. And, you know, that wasn't necessarily what she wanted, but you know what? They've never had a conversation about it. And she wasn't really able to help in any decision making when it happened. So he had to make decisions, right? And that's just one possible scenario. So it's really important to have these conversations with our loved ones about what is it we would want? What would we want to happen if and whatever. And there's one wonderful quote in there that I really like. And it says, I have a, what's the word called? The document, a plan of, my brain suddenly lost the word. That happens to me lately, but you know the one I'm talking about, where you have a plan. It's going to come to me in a minute, where you've talked to someone and you've written it down. And healthcare directive. I have healthcare directives, not because I have an illness, but because I have a family. And your family is going to want to know, should anything happen. We don't wait until we have an illness to plan these things out. It's better that we plan them ahead of time. And so this one is kind of going through, what are the possible scenarios and what would happen and what conversations do you need to have and what documents do you need to be filling in so that you've got these things in order. Workshop 5 looks at transportation issues, getting around. What are all the different ways? So we spend about the first half of the workshop looking at driving. And from both the perspective of a driver and a non-driver, because what we've discovered is, if you look at the research of people who do not have a driver's license, who are over the age of 65, they spend about 50 or 60% of their time, the stat is escaping me at the moment, but it's in that range, as a passenger in a car. About 60% of their transportation time is spent as a passenger. So, you know, not a bad thing for them to be aware of driving issues as well. So we look at it from the perspective of both, but we spend about the first half of the workshop looking at driving overall, and then driving cessation. What does that involve? And, you know, what's the experience like? And then we start looking at that. We spend the second half looking at all the other alternatives, and it's everything, every alternative possible. And as with our housing guide that I mentioned earlier, this year we're coming out with a transportation guide. So the housing guide is given out with the housing workshop that I'll mention in a minute. And once we get the transportation guide sorted out, that will be going out as well with the transportation workshop. So it really gives a lot of resources when we do this up. And again, in each of these, you're going through some exercises to really think it through in the moment, get yourself started and thinking about things on your own, rather than you've heard a bunch of stuff and then you might forget about it. You've actually started working on things by the time you leave the workshop. The sixth one is exploring housing options, and it's every single housing option out there. I'd be very surprised if you can come up with one we have not covered in this workshop and in our housing guide. So, you know, we take the basic premise of, what is your next move? You know, will it be 2 years from now, 10 years from now? What might be involved in getting ready for that move? What do you need to think through? Do you need to think through, you know, downsizing and getting rid of a lot of your things? Or do you need to think through, you know, do you really want to be in Halifax where your son is? Or do you want to stay here in Ottawa where your friend group is? It's thinking through all those things. And do you want a driveway that you have to shovel? It's all the possibilities, and there's checklists and forms you can fill in to help you think through those issues. So it's just a fantastic workshop. And then workshop number 7 is addressing common financial concerns. And that was an interesting one. I was involved in putting that one together. And it was really interesting because this is applicable to people, whether they make, you know, 15,000 or, you know, 150,000 a year. It really doesn't matter. There are common concerns to all of us. Will I have enough? Well, will you have enough for what? Or do I have a plan in place if someone is asking me for money? So that could be a neighbor who's regularly asking you for $20, or it could be your daughter who wants the family cottage, ahead of time or whatever. Are you ready to answer those questions? We talk about frauds and scams and a variety of different things. So this one is really addressing things that are common to everyone. So nobody is going to be left out. We're not talking about high finances or investments, or it's what are our concerns about our finances at any income level. So it's quite interesting. And then our last one is just kind of a wrap up to say, where have we come with all of this? Because in each workshop, at the end of each workshop, everybody makes a commitment to themselves and maybe to a partner or a small group of this week, I'm going to do whatever. So this week, I'm going to go and knock on my neighbor's door. I've seen her many times. I've never introduced her. I couldn't even tell you what her name is. Or this week, I'm going to have a conversation with my daughter about the fact that I would like this kind of burial. Or this week, I'm going to try taking an Uber or whatever it is. It's a commitment each week towards that topic. And then we come back. So week 8 is kind of saying, where are you at? What commitments have you made throughout the other 7 weeks? Where are you at with them? Which commitments do you want to make still going forward, etc. So that's workshop 8 to wrap it up. And we found that a few of these small groups have stayed together. We were really surprised. That was a nice outcome. I think we found 3 or 4, groups of 3 or 4 people who had stayed connected all through COVID, where we had done the course last year, and then we connected with them again in November. And a few of them said they had stayed connected, which we thought was just fabulous, and many had not. And that's fine too. But they did feel very empowered by the opportunity to talk through their issues with maybe someone who is a stranger. And sometimes it's not as intimidating to do that. And so they just found it a very helpful opportunity to work through some of those things. So it's been a very rewarding thing. This is a quote that I came across that for me kind of captured it. You can't teach people everything they need to know. Best you can do is to position them where they can find what they need to know. Now, this guy is sitting on top of a very tall bookcase, so hopefully you won't be sitting up there. But the point is, what position are you going to be in? Do you have the information you need to be ready for life's changes as they come? And again, your grandchildren are preparing for different life changes than you are, or what have you. We're all preparing for different things. But I think that's a significant thing to look at. And just lastly, I'll mention, I mentioned earlier, the standalone workshops that we've just developed. So these 5 are all COVID inspired, shall we say. So one of them is on connecting at a distance, and we held that last week, this past week, just on Wednesday. So talking all about, what are the various ways we can stay connected when we can't connect in person. And it's not just because of COVID though. It could be because you're a caregiver and you can't get out of the house, or, loved ones who live far away, or whatever it is. So there's many ways of connecting at reasons we might need to connect at a distance. Online banking and shopping is one that we're offering this coming Wednesday. And so it's for those, COVID has really raised this, that a lot of people don't know how to do online banking and shopping. And you raised a really good point earlier, that it's nice to be able to go into a bank and have that social contact. But it's also nice to know how to do it without doing that when need be. If you're not well, but you need to make a transaction, or if there's a pandemic going on, or maybe you're out of town and you can't get to the bank. So to at least have that ability and figure out, when is this useful to me and when is it not? And when would I rather go to the bank in person, and when might it be convenient to do it online? So we're talking about all those things. Then the next one coming up after that would actually be at the bottom there, the emergency preparedness. We're doing that one on March 22nd. So that one is still open for registration. Registration is closed on the first 2, but emergency preparedness is on March 22nd. And that's just looking at all the things that, can happen. How many of us have ever had the power go out? And, you might remember there was a time not long ago when power went out for a few days, and even with the tornado, there was some people out of power for 5-6 days, and seniors in high-rise buildings, they can't get up and down the stairs. So just preparing for any kind of emergency, whether it's a power outage or a flood or a whatever it might be. So this is a great workshop. We just piloted that one amongst our pilot group that we test everything on. And it was just fantastic. And so preparing for that. And then on March 24 is going to be the recipe for healthy eating. So I think some people, maybe we need to rename it. Some people are thinking we're just going to talk about nutrients, which we do mention, but it's also, what are all those other things that we need to explore? What's your past that, maybe your cultural past that's influenced how you eat, or what eating habits do you have that maybe need to change? And how do our bodies change as we age such that we need different things? So that's a really interesting one. And we've also put together, which I really appreciated, my parents wanted to explore, they're done cooking. My mom's been in a wheelchair for a number of years, and my dad is like, I'm so done cooking. I just want to have, what are the options where I can just have food delivered to me? And so sometimes I take the meals, of course, but so we've explored, ordering in, but there's so many options, and I couldn't get my head around all these meal kit deliveries versus actual hot meal deliveries. So we have a whole page or two on what are all the options of getting food to you. And so, because we have had people asking those questions, so it's really interesting to look at that as well. So it's a really holistic look at how do you, get the food you need, and in a variety of ways. And then the last one will be exploring mental health. We don't have a date for that one yet. We're just finishing developing that over the next couple of weeks. But it's really looking at maintaining mental wellness in times of difficulty, whether it's immediate moments of difficulty, like I've just lost my spouse, or whether it's longer term, I'm finding as I age that I'm feeling, whatever, or, I'm feeling lonely, or I'm, not as resilient as I used to be when things happen, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of different issues we'll be looking at there, but it's really looking at resiliency and mental wellness, and how do we maintain mental wellness throughout our lives, including in times of difficulty. So that's it for my presentation. I'm going to stop screen sharing, and I haven't done too bad, 3:07. I was close to an hour. So I am very happy to take any questions or clarify anything that you would like. Go ahead.
People can, no,
Yeah.
You're very good, Sarah. People can unmute their mics if they'd like to ask a question verbally, or they can use the chat function.
Okay,
it might be good to, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you mean me, but I was just going to say, having been a freelancer for many years, and then when I had kids joining the federal government, I've had the benefits and the challenges of both sides, and was lucky enough with my husband to do the retirement course 3 times, because he got to do it and bring a spouse. I got to do it and bring a spouse. And it took us 3 times to have stuff sink in. So I think this is fantastic what you're doing, and so necessary. And I can see, especially for the artist community, or the arts worker community, many of whom spend a lot of time creating and surviving, versus building a nest egg and thinking about money. And I think about my ex-spouse who, we assist and just trying to get him to think about certain things. So I think for the PAL community, this is fantastic for the future PAL Palace, or is it PAL Place?
PAL Place.
I know, but if we keep
Close
saying
enough.
PAL Palace,
Close enough.
we might call it the palace. Anyway, I think this is really important as part of the ongoing self-assessment that one needs to take as one gets older, because, at 60 or 55, you might think, I've got this all covered, and then you have an elderly parent or an elderly friend or a younger friend who suddenly has a stroke and is dealing with all this, and they haven't thought it through at all. Most of us have not been able to sort of picture that unless we have to live it or are assisting someone directly. So this is fantastic, Sarah.
Oh, good. Well, I was going to say you might be interested in holding a smart aging course just for PAL. I don't know if that's something you'd be interested to do. We've normally been having around 25 people in each course on Zoom. But I don't know what your membership is like, if it's that big or what have you, but certainly something you could look at. We would be very open to exploring that. And we've had requests from a few groups where it's like our group would like this just for us, not random, but just for our group. So absolutely, we'd be happy to.
Yeah,
I did notice it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Sarah, I think that's something that our membership would definitely appreciate, and it would be very advantageous to them, as well as the people that are on the waiting list to get into Pal Place, which is probably about 80 or 90 people. One of the things I've noticed in some of the uptake of some of the programming that we're offering is that people have, some people have a hard time coming to terms or acknowledging that they're getting older and that they need to ask for help.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can have a really great program and you can publicize it, but there isn't really any uptake for it. But in speaking with other members of PAL, for example, I've been told that when you actually do the one-to-one outreach, call that person up and say, hi, we've got this program to do X, and you form a relationship with them, even if it's on the phone. I mean, with Zoom, that's about all you can. During COVID, that's about all you can do. It really helps in inducing the uptake to that particular program, whatever it is. So I think that what I'm interested in is, you were talking about the housing options for seniors, and that there's a wide range of housing. But in the city of, I lived in Toronto for a long time, and housing there is, forget it. And what's happening in Ottawa, I don't know if you know, but there's a draft changes to the Ottawa official plan going on right now.
Yep.
And there's a lot of opposition in my area, which is Alta Vista, and other areas as well. So this
opposition?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of opposition.
Okay.
What's going to happen is it's actually going to lead to greater housing prices, because developers are going to move in. There's going to be minimum standards on houses that are for sale, and developers will move in and buy them and put up, higher story, multi-story facilities, and prices are going to go up. And combined with low interest rates and blind bidding, which is going on in real estate, the housing situation, just for average people, is just going wacko. So for seniors that, let's say, want to move into any place, it's going to be crazy. So I'm wondering, is just in terms of your advocacy, are you doing anything in terms of housing advocacy specifically?
We've been
With
doing
politicians.
Sorry, I heard something. Every time I talk, it starts to roar. We've been certainly working with a variety of places. Advocacy somewhat. We have been, in response to your question, working with the city on their official plan. And in fact, we submitted some responses to them a couple of weeks ago. So each of our committees, we have one woman on who used to be on our board. Her name is Louise Plouffe, and she is somewhat the mother of Age Friendly. She was part of developing it down in Brazil way in the very beginning. Wonderful woman. So she met with each of our committees and has developed a response from each of those perspectives to the official plan. So we have done that quite extensively. So it's quite an extensive response that we've provided to them. to the official plan. Housing specific, we've been more involved in the promotion of various options. One of the ones that we've really liked and have been trying to promote is the Oasis model. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's
I've heard of
in
it, yeah.
Kingston right now, and I believe they're moving, towards Ottawa and getting something established here. But it's a terrific model, which basically has a lot of people living together in one building, sort of like an apartment building idea, but with sort of a central hub to it all. It's a very popular model. You could Google it for sure, the Oasis housing model. And so we've been trying to promote that and also raise awareness about a lot of home sharing. That's one of the most popular things that people want. And so we have looked into some possibilities of how we can have established some sort of a home sharing directory or something. We're not really sure, or encourage people on how they would want to go about home sharing. You don't want to get into it and then go, this isn't working well. So what are the things you want to do? I know we've been directing people to, there's a great directory that the province has put out on buying a home together, because if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people who all buy a home together, but they're not married or in a conjugal relationship, it's a very different thing even with the banks to buy that house. And what are the legalities? Like normally if you're a couple, one person dies and the other person keeps the house, right? But if
Yeah.
you're 5 individuals, one person dies, is the expectation that you buy them out, is the expectation that you sell their portion. So there's all kinds of legalities. So we've been really promoting awareness of the options so that people can really start to consider those things. So
Right.
that's a big part of what we've been doing, and just making sure that people are educated on what the options currently are. So advocating, certainly there's some work there, but I would say right now we've been really big on the education of informing people of the options. Yes, Ruth.
I'd be really interested in getting information which is targeting people who live in extreme poverty, and that's who I am. So I have been a professional artist my whole life, and consequently I have no money because, you know, the average income for a visual artist is somewhere in the region of about $9,000 to $12,000 a year, and that's kind of been my reality.
Mm-hmm.
I moved from Toronto, and I was living in a place where I had rent geared to income. And I want to know what hoops I have to jump through, because when I move from the place that I'm living in now, when I have to, I will need to be part of a subsidy program. And
Sure.
In Toronto, you had to pre-register to be part of that. And I have no idea in Ottawa how it works. Like, I do not understand why we all live in Ontario, but every city seems to have different rules.
Yes, that's a good point.
You know,
so to the best of my knowledge, I think I'm giving you the right answer, but I could certainly verify. I would get on with the Ottawa Community Housing Registry. Now, some places they have, it might be one unit in an apartment building that is rent geared to income and everyone else is not. And in other cases, it's a whole apartment building that is owned by Ottawa Community Housing and it's all rent geared to income.
Does that registry apply to, like what I'm thinking of when I look at the example of my mother? She had to she went from complete independence to, she was paralyzed, she through a fall, and she had to go into care.
Yep.
She has money. But if that happened to me, I don't have money, and I don't know, like, community housing is not the same as long-term care, or which is where I'm looking at going.
Okay, so community housing, you're right, is still independent living, rent geared to income. Long-term care, you will always be provided for in long-term care. It's basically what you can afford, and there are rates for it. So I can't remember what
the be registered. Do you have
no long-term care? No. So when you are no longer capable, when they deem you to be in need of long-term care, you go on a list, and if you're in critical need, like it's a sudden thing, then you would be put to the top of the list right away. Like, you don't have to wait, someone else was there a long time ago and they just need foot care. That's not how it works.
Right.
So it is prioritized, absolutely. So certainly keep that in mind. As for our retirement residents, it's not necessarily out of the question. There are 3 in Ottawa that I know of that are for lower income people. So one of those is Camilla Gardens. It's on Ogilvie near Saint Laurent. One of those is Bearbrook Lodge. It's in the Bearbrook area. If you know Bearbrook, I can't think of the name of the area,
I
but it's
don't
off
know
Bearbrook.
Ottawa at all, so.
Okay, so it's more in the East End. All 3 of them are in the East End, and the other one is Cumberland Lodge, and it's way out in Cumberland, east of the city. But all 3 of those you could get in for, OAS and GIS put together.
Do you have to register for that, or?
No, you would just do it as you need it. But if you want to get into any rent geared to income where you're living independently, say for yourself right now, that you have to get onto a wait list for.
Well, I'm on the wait list for the PAL because I figure,
Okay.
by the time, like I was in Toronto, I was in a I don't know what you'd call it. Anyway, it was a mixed use, like whole environment called Artscape, Witchwood Barns, and which is a great model. I don't like Artscape per se, but I like the model.
Yep.
So, and I was familiar with PAL in Toronto. So, because I actually had a lot of friends who were living there.
Great.
So,
Okay.
Those are really, I mean, to me, like from somebody who is in my position, and I know that there are lots of people like me.
Yep.
Those are great models because they're very flexible. So you've got, all the different.
And it is absolutely the most desired model out there to have sort of communal living, the Golden Girls model, except I guess there needs to be the Golden Guys now, but the Golden Girls model where, you've got, whether it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 20 people all living in the same building, be it a house, be it a smaller building, where you can all share in things. It's really a desired model. So there's a sense of community. So it's a great question.
If I could just jump in,
David.
Sarah, my background is in, I work with the Ministry of Health for almost 20 years, and
Okay.
long-term care, we know that our long-term care system is broken. It's a
Yes.
mess. It's a mess. I mean, if you can, I shouldn't say if you can avoid getting into a nursing home, because things happen. My mother had a stroke, and I took care of her here at home for 6 months, and then she passed away because my brother and I didn't want to put her in a nursing home for obvious reasons. And before COVID, the long-term care system was a mess. It's been a mess for
Yes.
20, 30 years.
Yes.
So what the government really needs to do, and maybe, Sarah, maybe you're involved in this already or working towards it, is they need to get away from this business of warehousing people in large nursing homes. It just doesn't work. We need smaller nursing homes. I think there's one called Abbeyfield, I believe, and something like that, where you have, I don't know, 8 to 10 residents, and it's like I guess it's sort of like Oasis, but it's a nursing home. It's for people that
higher level of care.
And that's what the government needs to do, and for them to be non-profit, not for-profit, because the for-profit facilities just aren't good. But this is where advocacy from the organizational perspective is important, and citizen advocacy at the individual level, because seniors have been neglected for a long time in the area of nursing homes. There's a lack of home care. There's a cap on home care, which is only 22 hours a week. If you've had a stroke, 22 hours a week is not enough. It's just not enough. So we need a lot of advocacy in Ontario. Actually, it's really a federal issue when you think about it. Even though healthcare is a provincial issue, it's a pan-Canadian. It cuts across every province, the issue of poor care for our seniors. And anyways, it's that's down the road. But in terms of affordable housing for you, Ruth, probably, if you can, I don't know if you are on the waiting list for PAL Place, but I would certainly apply.
I hope I'm on the waiting list. It's a little hard to know because I did apply, but I never got a sort of confirmation that I'm on the waiting list. I mean, I
Oh.
applied, I filled in the form, but there's nothing that says we got your form
You're
and,
number 26 on the wait list.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to send me an email, you can do that and I can follow up for you.
That's
You
nice.
put your
isn't it?
email in the chat because all I can,
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
don't
I'll
have
put it in
your
the chat.
email.
I'll put in the chat right now. Oops. Sorry.
Yeah, Ruth, I'm just coming in and I'm working on waiting list stuff, but I'm just coming in. So David's the best connection right now. But the way I understood it, because I'm on the list as well, is you should have received some kind of acknowledgement. So we'll follow up with that.
Yeah,
But
there's
Ruth,
my
maybe you could send a private message to David with your contact information in case you're not on the list and he wants to make sure you get on the list, because you can.
Yeah. That's a
Okay.
good idea. That's a good idea.
That's okay. I'll just put it in the chat. I mean, you'll see it. I'm all over the web, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Go. And I was going to say, if income is an issue for anyone, we do charge for all of our programming, but we do have a line down at the bottom that says, you know what, if cost is prohibitive for you, just drop us a note and you can go for free. So I'm not going to check anybody's last year's tax forms, or if you tell me you need to come for free, you can come for free. So certainly if you want to attend any of those workshops that I've noted today or anything like that, there is a fee for them, but you don't have to pay it. Just drop us a note and we'll register you.
Sarah,
Anybody-
Yep.
I just wanted the range of the cost for those who can afford it of these courses. I'm going to pass this information on. So
Sure, no problem. I'm not sure what we're going to be charging for the core program in the future. Right now I have a grant, but we're charging $50 for the 8-week program for non-members and $25 for our members. Membership, by the way, is $40. And then for the standalone workshops, we're currently, and again, we have a grant for it, but we're currently charging 10 for non-members and 5 for members for each of those workshops. And again,
that's extremely reasonable. And
yeah, it is reasonable. We've had some complaints. Sorry.
Especially given that you're giving the option to check in and say, that's too much for me. And
Yeah,
well, that's fantastic. Thank you.
We had a couple people complain that $5 was too small to put on their credit card. So I was like, well, give us more then. You
Yes.
can pay us 25.
Yeah, why not?
Add a couple of zeros. That's all good.
Actually, I think this would be a great initiative for PAL for us to put in funding to sponsor our members to take this course, and it wouldn't cost the members anything.
That's a great idea.
So I've written that down
Okay,
Oh,
for a grant. Yeah, we'll look after that.
that's awesome. No, we
Sure.
would be delighted to work with you on that.
That'd be wonderful.
Okay.
Does anybody have it? We're coming up on 3:30. Does anybody have any more questions or comments for Sarah? We all want to get out there and take a walk, but just
Yeah.
watch the. I almost fell. I was just going to my car outside, and like I almost fell on the driveway. And then I realized the boots I'm wearing these fall boots, which is very stupid. Anyways, I need to take one of your courses.
There you go. Or go download the walking tips.
Yeah. Or get some salt.
There you go. Inside
I
your
like
front door.
when I heard that, I thought, you know what, that's very smart,
Mhm. It is.
which is something I haven't done.
Yeah.
Anyways, I want to thank Sarah for giving an incredibly robust and comprehensive presentation. There's a lot of information here, a lot of information to absorb, and this is something that I mean, there's so many aspects to smart aging, and it's something that we really have to do and incorporate in our lives as we're getting older, and not to think that, oh, it'll never happen to me, or I've got time. Because unfortunately, even for younger people, things happen. Things happen at any age. And, we all have, when you're younger and you start driving, you take out car insurance. And this is a form of insurance in terms of educating yourself as to how, make the proper decisions and really, make chart your retirement and your journey as you get older, and be very knowledgeable about it and very deliberate about it. It's extremely important. Not wait for things to happen, because as I say, things can happen at any time. So Sarah, thank you so much for a great presentation. Would you be able to send your slides to me? And
Sure.
I was wondering if we're going to, this presentation is being recorded, so it's going to be put up on our PAL YouTube channel. And if we can also get the slides, that would be great, and put them up as well, if it's okay with you.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. I'll send you, I guess, a PDF of the slides. No problem.
That's great. And thank you to the audience for coming today. There will be many more social circles. Before COVID, these social circles, Julie Hodgson, who is here, was my predecessor, and Julie was holding a lot of social circles. I think it was on a monthly basis. So hopefully, we'll get through the spring and the summer, and there will be more social circles, and hopefully in the fall we'll have in-person social circles, which will be really, really neat. Just the way things used to be in the old days. So thank you again. Thank you to Sarah for a great
Most
presentation.
welcome.
And merci beaucoup, and to the audience, and have a lovely day and a nice weekend.
Out into the wilds of the Ottawa winter, going for a walk. Great idea, David. Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.